Romance films with sad endings often stay with us longer than happy ones because they force us to confront a reality that many stories avoid. Love and permanence are not the same thing. Some of the most beloved romances, La La Land, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, 500 Days of Summer, Blue Valentine, or Past Lives, are not really teaching us that love fails. They're teaching us that love can be meaningful even when it doesn't last. A common assumption is that a successful relationship is one that survives forever. These films challenge that idea. They suggest that some people enter our lives not to stay, but to change us. A relationship can end and still have been valuable. It can leave someone wiser, more mature, more compassionate, or simply more aware of who they are. In many ways, these stories ask us to reconsider what we mean when we talk about failure. If two people genuinely loved each other, grew because of each other, and carried that experience with them for the rest of their lives, was the relationship really a failure simply because it ended? Sad romances rarely give us easy answers, but they often suggest that the value of love cannot be measured only by its duration. They also teach us about timing. Many tragic romances are built around the painful truth that two people can genuinely love each other and still be unable to build a life together. Different ambitions, circumstances, fears, responsibilities, or stages of life can pull people apart. Love is important, but it is not always enough. Past Lives is perhaps one of the clearest examples of this idea. Nora and Hae Sung share a connection that feels profound and undeniable, yet the reality of their lives moves them in different directions. The film never questions the authenticity of their feelings. Instead, it asks whether love alone can overcome time, geography, and the countless choices that shape a life. Sometimes the tragedy is not that love wasn't real. The tragedy is that reality was real too. Another lesson is that memory often becomes more powerful than reality. When relationships end, people tend to remember moments rather than entire histories. Sad romances capture this tendency. We look back at what could have been, constructing alternate lives in our imagination. The ending of La La Land is devastating precisely because it shows a life that never happened but feels emotionally real. The same idea appears in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Joel and Clementine attempt to erase each other from memory, yet the film suggests that our memories, both beautiful and painful, are inseparable from who we are. The relationship may have ended, but the emotional truth of it remains. Even after forgetting, something still lingers. The past refuses to disappear completely. 500 Days of Summer explores another side of memory. The film quietly reveals how easily we turn people into idealized versions of themselves. Tom spends much of the story remembering Summer not as she was, but as he wanted her to be. His heartbreak comes partly from losing the relationship, but also from confronting the gap between memory and reality. Blue Valentine offers perhaps the most uncomfortable lesson of all. It refuses to romanticize love's collapse. Instead, it shows how affection can slowly erode under the pressures of life, disappointment, and unmet expectations. The film is heartbreaking because nobody becomes a villain. Sometimes relationships end not because of betrayal or malice, but because two people gradually become strangers to one another. These films also remind us that grief is often the price of caring deeply. If loss hurts, it is usually because something mattered. The sadness is not evidence that the experience was worthless. In many cases, it is evidence of the opposite. Perhaps the most important lesson is that maturity sometimes means accepting incompleteness. We often want stories and lives to resolve neatly. Sad romances suggest that some of the most meaningful experiences do not provide closure. People move away. Circumstances change. Opportunities disappear. Questions remain unanswered. Yet life continues. That's why these films resonate. They aren't just about heartbreak. They're about accepting that beauty and loss often arrive together. A love story doesn't become meaningless because it ends. Sometimes the ending is exactly what gives it meaning.